Welcome to People Pursuing Greatness podcast, episode number 50. Hallelujah. We made it to number 50. Can you guys believe it? Thank you all for hanging out for as long as you have. And if this is your first time, welcome. To preface the podcast, we are actually posting all of our podcasts on YouTube now. So Patrick Ryan II is my co-host, my partner in crime. And Scott Marin takes our podcast and shoots it with all of his beautiful high-def cameras. He edits the stuff together and he slaps it on YouTube. So look us up, People Pursuing Greatness. We're on YouTube. Subscribe, share. And if you don't care for the video version of this podcast, welcome to the beautiful audio version with my sultry voice and Patrick's, as well as our latest guest, Mr. Andrew Nez, joining us out of Albuquerque. He's a licensed massage therapist. He joins Patrick and I to talk about his practice at Aurora Sky Massage. He's a licensed massage therapist, state licensed. We do talk about that. And also, which is curious, you guys will get to that in the podcast, what makes a legitimate massage therapy clinic, not a massage parlor. Little things like Christmas lights around the windows can tell you that you may have the wrong type of ending for your massage if you go to the wrong massage parlor. So Andrew is definitely the complete opposite of that stereotypical, tongue-in-cheek joke that you would have about a massage therapist. And he's an expert in his field. We talk very extensively about the philosophy of exercise and recovery, while getting nothing but honest truths that these two gentlemen will drop on commonly held fitness advice, stuff that me as a layman, they can debunk right off the bat. And then we also get in depth about things that, Patrick has a segment that he has on a social media. Patrick's a personal trainer for anybody that is just tuning in. You can find him at Aware.training. Essentially, Patrick has some funny, shorts that he'll put out where he basically has, shit my clients will say. So this is, Morgan is, I am a straightforward person. So I like to throw out the dumb shit that I've done in the past and have Patrick and in this case, Andrew, kind of give advice and maybe debunk some commonly held stuff that I've been taught, being around the gym bros and the track bros and the whole bit. So, even if you fall somewhere in between, there's going to be something in this podcast for you. We talk about finding a holistic approach to staying in shape, real world criticism and how that can make you a humble person. And then just speaking up and talking about how something hurts and maybe you just want to get some help with some part of your fitness journey. So I hope you guys enjoy this. You can find Andrew and his business at auroraskymassage.com. He is taking appointments. The man is highly sought after. Patrick was the one that, of course, had sought out Andrew to bring him on the podcast, and we became fast friends. And I think you guys will enjoy yourselves. So, again, check us out on YouTube. Links to everything is at ppgpodcast.com. And we appreciate you guys listening. You guys stay groovy out there and keep pursuing that greatness. Cheers. Interviews with people pursuing greatness. All right, so we got Andrew Nez on People Pursuing Greatness podcast. Welcome, my friend.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for inviting me.
We're also joined by Mr. Patrick Ryan. Patrick Ryan, the legend.
Howdy.
The myth, the legend.
Nice to meet you.
He exists. We caught him only for an hour. So,
and somehow you are able to catch me once a month.
Once a month. It's weird, right?
Yeah,
it's like I'm starting to figure
how that
you
happens. It's
So-
like it's planned or something.
So, Andrew, you join us out of Albuquerque. You're a medical massage therapist, and you're the owner of Aurora Sky Massage, which I hear like sky high reviews. I've actually read some reviews, neutral of Pat, right? Just to look at you, my man, and it all looks good, bro. Like the internet usually doesn't lie, so you seem to be you really seem to know your stuff, dude. So yeah, I mean, how did you get into massage therapy? And if you would talk about kind of your business, that way, of course, we can let people know how to get a hold of you and maybe get in there and have those magical Aurora fingers.
Ooh, well, since we only have an hour of time, I will give you the Cliff Notes version. So really what got me started in medical massage therapy, I mean, I've known Pat for almost, 13 years, Pat?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's been
I
a
didn't know
while.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Andrew and I go back to college at UNM.
College. So, I, like most graduates, I graduated from UNM with my bachelor's in exercise science. Had no fucking clue what I was supposed to do. So I finally just said, I'm going to put my hand into every little thing that I think I can do. I took a couple of internships after I graduated, and one of them happened to be a massage therapist assistant. So it was just kind of like, I got to check in on a couple of things, work with some
Did
of
you
the
squirt the
clients.
oil on? Is that how that worked? Were you oil and then they jumped in with it?
No. So she was actually really trusting. She let me use my degree in a term of helping with some of her clients, like do post-exercise work. Sometimes it was like a good warm-up, and then I would be like, all right, see you later. Go see Joanna. Have fun.
That's cool.
But that like really is trying to just work, seeing her work sparked something for me in terms of like, oh, I actually really like this. I always wanted to be a physical therapist, but Pat knows the program itself was just super intense. It was really, really hard to get into. So when that didn't all come together like I had planned for 10 years to do, finally just said, well, fuck it. Find something else that's better. And turns out massage therapy is 10 times better than what I would have thought physical therapy school would have been.
And especially if you own the joint, man. So you went the right way.
Absolutely. So then from there, I joined the ABQ School of Massage Therapy. I did that for 6 months, got my degree. Once that was all said and done, I had a blast. I fell in love with it. I was able to do some similar work to what physical therapists do, but I was able to have that freedom of not being confined to dealing with insurance, having to deal with doctors, having to
hospitals,
deal with
clinics,
all that stuff.
Yeah, admins.
So I kept the whole corporate kind of overview out of my life, and I just said, I'm going to do my own thing. And I like that. So
Yeah.
I had the freedoms of being able to work with somebody and say like, you know what? Insurance would tell me that the only thing I could work on is a shoulder and that would be it. But it's so much deeper than that. And so finally, as a therapist, I was able to sit there and say like, nah, dude, your shit's jacked up. Like, we're going to work on this. We're going to work on that. And like Pat can tell you, man, I could sit there and just with my eyes visually tell you everything that I see is going on.
Yeah. Without even getting on the table yet.
Yeah. That's it. But again, that took years of practice.
Sure.
And that is kind of what I was looking for before I even got into physical therapy, was just like, I needed that groundwork to say, this is my thing.
Right.
And then maybe I might look into physical therapy in the future. I get the itch to go back to school once in a while, but then I look at the requirements again and I'm like, is it really worth it?
Right.
No,
well, and then you're back in that machine, like you said, because I mean, physical therapy it's very monetized. I mean, it's meant to be sort of a business. I mean, a lot of it that I've, seen in my, circles that I've been in, being around medical, has always just been like workman's comp. And there's just an economy based around that. And, like you said, like you can only treat one piece of the person. That's just not cool. You shouldn't only be able to treat one piece of the person. It should really be all the parts necessary to make that muscle fucked up in the first place. You know what I mean? Because if you have a bad shoulder, chances are that you probably have a bad habit in the gym. Let's say, I'm making an example or maybe an assumption.
Or just a lifelong bad habit that you didn't know of.
Yeah. Maybe you had a baseball injury from high school that you just tried to tough out. We talked about that on our last episode. Like, dudes just want to be tough, and it makes for like it's hard to like reconfigure that in a quick little session in a clinic where you're just like, hey bro, even though they only let me work on your shoulder, you should probably work with a coach to learn how to lift right, or whatever you did to fuck this up in the first place. This is coming from my perspective. You know what I mean? But do you see a lot of gaps in the medical knowledge when it comes to that, like massage therapy in particular, compared to like physical therapy? Is it overlooked or underappreciated, do you think?
As massage therapists in particular, so being a male massage therapist is absolutely rare. Okay. So that in itself, in a nutshell, is very difficult. Massage therapy is more of a female dominated industry.
Absolutely.
Okay? So it's very rare for us to ever succeed. And that was one of like the first things that I heard out of school was like, oh man, as a male massage therapist, you're going to be lucky to get any work at all.
Really?
And
I didn't know that.
Honestly, I took that in stride because it was kind of like my fire that lit under my ass to just say like, you know what, fuck you. I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah, for real.
And I'm going to be the most successful that I could possibly be. And here we are.
Right.
But as far as massage therapy, it does get overlooked a lot of times because people have this perception of it being very erotic and very sensual. And it's just like, no, that exists. It's out there. Don't get me wrong, but that's not what I'm here to do.
It's not that Pornhub scene that people would imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
well, and not only that, but like it being this luxurious thing. Like that's what I've always run into with people when I would primarily start to turn them towards looking into working with Andrew in particular, and just massage in general, where it was always viewed with this kind of negative stigma. But I think that's no different than many other dimensions of the health and just the health and wellness industry, where people would look at it through this lens of, oh, this is a luxury. Like you've got to be making a bunch of money to be able to go and get a massage. And it's just like, that's not what this is about. There are components that I cannot address as a coach, because I refer out to Andrew a lot. I've sent a lot of clients to him, and
I'm coming to you, bro.
It's a matter. It's been a matter of acknowledging my own scope of practice, where I work with people through their exercise or eating habits, and it's my job as a professional to know when I need to just refer out. Yeah. So it would be helping break this stigma for people around them, thinking like, oh, that's, it's this luxurious, because that's what I would deal with more than like the sensual erotic stuff, was people just thinking like, oh, I've got to be making $1 million in order to go justify going and getting a massage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's a lot of reasons why physical therapy gets a bigger picture, because physical therapy is covered under insurance for most people.
Well, and so is chiropractic, you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of an interesting thing. It's like, that's like chiropractic is not necessarily, I guess controversial could still be considered the word, like in terms of its uses, because in some scenarios, I think that you get into a car accident, you shouldn't be cracking your back every day. I'm just saying, like some doctors like honestly say that. They're like, they don't understand why they get that money the way that they do. That's looked at as almost like, don't get me wrong. I mean, a huge swath of the world's medical professionals will, of course, push somebody towards chiropractic just the same as they would massage therapy, depending on their beliefs. But I still think that, for insurance to quantify that as being maybe better or more clinical than massage therapy is kind of an odd way to think. It's a very American way to think about it, if you ask me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's kind of like the biggest issue that I run into is people will ask like, hey, I've been in a car accident. Is my insurance going to cover this? Really, it's kind of a gamble, because sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. And as a owner of a business, that's a really big risk to take, because if I've been working on this person for X amount of time, I'm doing all this work to work on this person, but I also take the risk that if insurance pays for it, great, that's awesome. But that could take anywhere from a year to 2 years.
No shit, dude.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for 2 years. Right now, like one of my biggest problems is post COVID pandemic. There was a lot of insurance work that I was working on. So I had no issues with it, because all my other employees were making up for the work that I was doing on other clients. So whether I was getting paid or not, it wasn't a big issue. But then all of the stuff came down, and then it was like, oh man, that would have really helped kind of keep things afloat. But then when insurance was just like, nah, we still got like another 2 years of litigation to fight with this. So you're just going to have to wait.
So the idea is that you would actually have to wait till like somebody is awarded money out of like a suit. No shit, dude. That's so the insurance. So, okay. If I was to go, I have mainstream insurance, right? And by the way, I think that's bullshit. Insurance companies, that's bullshit. But so I have my insurance, right? If I was to go to you, would it depend on my insurance for me to get, I guess it would be like elective massage therapy, or would I have to pay out of pocket? Like, is there an option for me to use like a massage credit or some shit every year? Do they have that?
So not most of them will do that. A lot of them will do what is called a reimbursement process. And that is a pain in the ass to go through, because most of the time people will come see me, they get their receipt, and they take their receipt and send it to their insurance and saying, This was for a medical reason. So before the shutdown, I used to work with a lot of U.S. veterans, a lot of military, UFC, all those types of folks. And what they would do is they would take their receipts, send it over to their insurance, and if they were provided a referral note from a doctor, then they could get reimbursed. But if they didn't have the referral note from a doctor saying that this was medically necessary, they would never see that money.
No shit.
Yeah, there's so much disconnect, and that's part of the reason why I thought of Andrew for a guest for this podcast, because I think that's kind of what we're venturing into, right? Is just continuing to get a more in-depth understanding of the different facets of health that need more airtime, that need more conversation, that need more context, because people don't know any better. So yeah, if you're not to say going through a doctor and getting help from a doctor is invalid, because it's not, but it's like they aren't versed. They just really aren't. Their niche is not being able to know the ins and outs of massage therapy or chiropractic work or personal training or nutrition counseling. They have no clue. So I think that's what can make that really frustrating when you've got a serious need for medical massage or just massage therapy in general. I speak as someone who has had hours of experience. I was working with Andrew when he was working out of his apartment.
Oh no shit.
Oh yeah. Like, so wow. I've been going to Andrew since my guess is around day one era. Yeah. You know what I mean? And seeing and getting that at such an early stage in my life, I think it was just outside of college. So I was 23, 24 years old. Yeah. It started to really, really change my perception of what one's health journey should look like. And instead of waiting until you're older to get massage, it's a matter of, no, you need to start doing this now. And you need to be doing it as frequently as you can. No, that's helpful.
That's really awesome. And it's cool to think of the fact that you guys have had that relationship for that long and then doing what Pat does and then doing what you do. So I guess then that will beg the question from the podcast host perspective. What would you say and I want to say opinion, but your educated opinion, are the benefits of getting massage, let's say, habitually? What would that be, monthly maybe? I don't know if is that like considered a normal routine? What would you say the benefits are, let's say over long term? And then maybe, even if you're like an older person who's never had it, can you loosen people up that have not done that shit for 50 years or something like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect question. So Pat has referred over multiple clients who have experienced massage for the first time in their lives, because again, the majority of people think it's a luxury item and that they can't afford to do these things. So right off the bat, my company in particular, Aurora Sky, is a little bit different. We always worked on a sliding scale basis depending on what people could afford. So that's very unusual, because a lot of times when you go to a place, you automatically know what you're going to be spending. But we would always tell people, like, if this is what you can afford to do, that's perfectly fine. Let's just make it a consistent habit, so that way we can keep on track with a regular routine. But from a therapist standpoint, everybody's different. So that's the biggest thing, is you should never go into, I'm going to keep corporate names out of the way, but there's a particular big massage industry that's out there that everybody goes to. Mm-hmm. And, granted, they do their job. There's a very cookie cutter routine that comes with going to an industry type place. How my clinic was completely different was, if you came to see a therapist, that therapist knew your family, that therapist knew who you were, that therapist knew every little thing that was going on in your body. So every time you came back, they would address those situations. They would say, like, hey, how's that injury? How has your life been? What do you notice about your life and your injuries kind of coinciding and existing together? And then we were trying to always bring that bigger picture for people to say, like, your stress is tied to how you feel. Right. And the way it's manipulating itself into your body is kind of a reflection of what's happening externally. So if you're super stressed and your lower back is hurting, and it's kind of like, well, if you remove those stressors, do you start noticing that the lower back stops hurting as much?
That's like a more holistic approach. I mean, that's looking at the total picture rather than just your shoulder insurance.
Absolutely.
And I can speak from personal experience, having worked with Andrew for quite some time now. We'll just say 8 years working with Andrew. I remember and him talking about it's because I can relate so much because I used to work within a corporate gym environment,
Right.
and that it's in and of itself is such a small representation of the potential of what can be done when coaching a client. So so when you have these big like corporate institutions, I guess you can say in each wing of the industry and massage therapy and the gym setting, et cetera, I would say it's barely one sliver or one layer of the whole in this holistic approach that we're talking about, to where people will come in to say, one of the big box gyms that I used to work at, they're being fed this. It's real. The way I kind of look at it is it's the gyms and the personal trainer's job to lead the client and lead them through what really needs to be done with their health. And I think what Andrew's alluding to, and I've experienced myself having worked in some of these places, is they're not doing a very good job of leading, because they're doing a horrible job of leading, because it's a very one-dimensional approach in taking care of somebody's health. So it's like, okay, in this particular case with massage, I'm sure I see a lot of overlap with personal training, where it's a matter of, okay, come in, we'll put you through a workout and then see you later, as if it's just this off-on switch of a session, as opposed to what Andrew's talking about, working with someone, getting to know them. It's all about context. This is part of why podcasts are so awesome, because you get context. You don't get rushed through a session with somebody. They get to know you. And I speak from experience through my journey, trying to just push things to the nth degree with depriving myself of sleep chronically for years. I remember this was in my mid-20s. I think it was like 2014, 2015. I had gone years sleeping 5 to 6.5 hours max a night, thinking it worked for that time, but this stuff adds up. And I was doing rigorous workouts on top of that. And
Not to mention the beer and the drugs and the hookers. I'm sorry, we're just getting off course here.
You're talking wrong about.
Sorry, wrong Pat.
Yeah, wrong. But seeing that stress manifest itself in my body, to the point to where I was experiencing central nervous system fatigue, and being able to work with Andrew on that and getting a better understanding of, hey, you may not want to hear this, but this isn't something you can't out exercise. You need to
can't
focus.
Out youth anymore.
Yeah. But you have to take your time. You have to prioritize rest. You have to prioritize restorative means of replenishment. And part of that for me was massage with Andrew, and then delving into yoga as a means of, okay, you can't outstrain life. You just can't. And it'll show up in your muscles in your body. And working with somebody like Andrew is great to have in your back pocket, because he will be able to see that on a much different level, because he's trained in that. You just come in with like, hey, I've got an issue in my shoulder, where he can look at that, and mitigate things in the shoulder, but see that it has to do with an entirely different part of your body, because newsflash, everything's interconnected.
Right.
And he's able to see that.
Well, I had to come back from and I this is one of the reasons why I do the podcast, and I like to do this with Pat. And now that we're bringing in guests, this is amazing. But I always bring up stupid shit that Morgan does. So, you can, this is part one of this episode, stupid shit that Morgan does. But I didn't understand that I was actually using the bench press incorrectly until I actually worked with an exercise, one of you guys, essentially a degreed person that would go through and just do a 30-minute 1, 2, 3 with me. And this is at my place of work, where I can actually do something like that. So I was able to go through this, and he's like, do a couple for me. And he stopped me through the first rep, and he's like, man, your form is trash. He's like, it's not that it's egregious in itself. He said that if you're doing this consistently 3 times a week, this is why your shoulder's starting to pinch. And he's like, if you haven't torn something, you're lucky. And he's like, the way you're explaining the issues, he said that you probably should change and listen to me, essentially. He was more humble than I'm, of course, making it sound, but he was just like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Basically, in a nutshell. And so he taught me just basic stuff, how I was, just to make the example, clear, I was actually pressing out with my shoulders, like in front of me, once I would have the bar all the way out. And I was doing it and basically putting the whole load into my shoulder rather than into my chest. And because my left side's always just been weaker, I thought I've always tried to overdo it. And eventually this shoulder started to catch up with me. I didn't know what warming up was. And we went through a whole a thing where he said, you're getting to be north of 30 now. He's like, you should be smarter. And he's like, if you want that shoulder to also not, fuck with you, you need to start warming up. And again, he's not any levels that would be, considered a massage therapist or a physical therapist, but he tried to like kind of cross that boundary where he said, listen, what do you do? And that's what I like about you guys is, you look at what do you do? And then you take that holistic approach to say, this is probably what's happening, and it's because you're doing X, Y, Z. Usually I don't know how you guys refrain from not saying stop it, stupid, like a lot, because that's what
it's an art.
It's a daily struggle. Oh, let me tell you.
Because it's got to be frustrating, to like give somebody advice and then they don't listen to it. Like I have a physical therapist that I've been seeing because and I think I talked about this in the last podcast, but I stepped and twisted my foot, basically like so I'm talking about overpronating
right.
To the inside. If this was the inside of my foot, so bad that it twisted all the way up into my knee. And the dude's been trying to, help me work things out, but it's one of those things where he'll tell me, okay, I'm going to do some stuff. And then you go test it out with this amount of mileage. And it takes everything within me not to go and fuck up my PT's advice and go do 6 miles or 8 miles and blow the knee back up. And, I'll press it just 1 mile more. And I come back and my knee hurts. And he's like, I go for my next session the next week. He's like, you went further than you're supposed to, huh?
Yeah.
So like looking at life habits and then how they can essentially be corrected and slight corrections, as Pat likes to put it, and come back. I think that's awesome. That's your mindset when you go into a patient,
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it comes down to like in your particular instance where I'm glad that you're being proactive, because that's a lot of where massage therapists do not get very much leeway is the best way to put it. Unless you are specifically trained to tell somebody, or you have a personal training license attached to your massage therapy license, there's a thing called scope of practice. And so me as a massage therapist, I could not tell you how to exercise. I could not tell you what you're supposed to do in the gym, how you should be doing it.
Sure.
But the hard part is that when we go to school, we are trained how to teach you how to do that stuff. And so it's like, if it's not in my scope of practice, why is it in my curriculum?
Right. Right.
And so when I asked my teacher that, she was like, well, so here's the thing. I would rather you take this information now, because it's going to help you do a deeper understanding of the way people move in terms of movement patterns. So just because somebody is screwing up really heavy in the gym and I can't correct that, but I can easily just as much say like, oh, that's a really interesting form, but let's try to switch it up to something that's a little bit more effective is the best way to put it. And so that way it kind of takes that stigma of like, I'm telling you what to do.
Right.
And I'm immediately telling you what you should do is stop.
and I'm sure you get more pushback from guys, right? In those scenarios
all the time.
Yeah. I was like, cause that's gotta be the way, cause we talked about that last episode. Like it's hard to get, like the big dude that has been lifting for, since he was in high school, and he's just maybe genetically gifted, but he's getting in his 30s and his back starts to hurt. That he knows the system to get big the way he is, but
that's all they know.
That's all they know.
I'm going to tell you right now, those guys are the biggest babies when it comes to being on the table.
Well, but it's really interesting he brings that up, because it was who was I talking to? Well, no, it was I did a foam rolling workshop for my clients. So I do these weekly meetings, and I figured, what, we need to talk about the benefits of stretching and foam rolling, the restorative portion of exercise that just always gets glossed over and thrown kind of to the side and traded out for, no, you need to push it. You need to push hard, push hard, push hard. And I remember talking to them about how, like, first and foremost, this is where it's always going to be a proactive measure. If you're able to hire a personal trainer, it would be a good idea to go and do that. In conjunction with that, I've referred I've referred my clients over to Andrew, to where this is where you create your own your own pit crew.
Keep it weird. Got to keep it weird.
This is where you create your own health pit crew, right? So it's like, you look at it through a lens of, I've got my massage therapist in my corner. I've got my personal trainer in my corner. They should be communicating with one another, which is what Andrew and I were doing with certain clients that were okay with it. And we had that all cleared as a means of, Andrew works with said client. You see, he gets feedback from that client as to what's going on. Andrew may not know the deep ins and outs of exercise, but there's so much overlap. Like he and I took 95% of the same classes together.
That's
at
interesting.
UNM. We were studying with one another. We were talking crap about professors we didn't like at UNM, like griping over difficult assignments. So there was no reason for me to not trust him. So there's so much overlap in his mind and our understanding of the human body, to where he would work with a client, he would see A, B, C, and D going on, and then he'd be able to relay that over to me. And then I would be able to put that into play in applying exercise prescription and program design for my clients. So everything was working in conjunction with one another, as opposed to what happens is people will go see a massage therapist and then just think, well, either the massage therapist isn't equipped enough to make recommendations for what they need to be doing in their exercise, or another valid possibility is you have a client that is just like, oh, okay, I guess that just means I can go back to doing my normal routine.
Right.
And then I just go to my massage therapist just to fix everything.
Right.
It's not like that. This can be a proactive means of integrating another very, very, very important dimension of your health and well-being if you let it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the really like cool aspects of working with Pat for as long as we has been keeping that open line of communication with his clients and my clients, and saying like, hey, I have somebody that could use this X amount of work. Can you give me details on what I can do to help this person? And so that was really my job, was to kind of like go through the whole thing and figure out everything I possibly could give him in terms of what to work on, how to work on it, how often they should be working on it. Pretty much anything. I can't recommend that to the person, but I can tell that to Pat.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the guy with the degree who says, okay, we're going to do this.
It's passing the torch. But a lot of that has to do with it's easier for some and not as easy for others, as far as from a client's perspective, to really give that responsibility to your practitioners of health.
Sure.
And just being in a place of, okay, here is the responsibility of my health, Andrew. Here is the responsibility of my health, Pat, in these different dimensions, and us guiding them through that and them trusting that process. That's not an easy thing to do. One other point I wanted to make relative to what Andrew was talking about, as far as maybe the more meathead related or meathead types being the biggest babies on the table. It's very interesting he says that, because you'll have individuals that you could put them through the most difficult gym-based conventional workout, and they have the endurance for it. They don't sweat as much. It's not as difficult. But I have had instances where with those same, and this is an extension of what Andrew's talking about, and I'm sure he's had plenty of experience with this, where I would have clients that would be working with Andrew. So then I would start changing my workout routines to do more dynamic warm-up based routines at the beginning of the session, to just, you don't need to be pounding weights all the time. And these individuals that were always, and it's very much a guy issue, these guys that were always complaining about, no, when are we going to hit the weights? When are we going to hit the weights? Like, this isn't a workout. And I said, well, let's just do what I've lined out. And even at this point, just do the dynamic warm up and foam roll, and let's see how we feel. And these dudes would be breaking out into a severe sweat. Oh, their heart rate would skyrocket. And I was not putting them through anything, anything near as difficult, generally speaking, as what you would see in a conventional workout. Right. And they would be sweating bullets. Wow. And so that's a completely different dimension of one's health and muscular
But can we
endurance
agree
that's not being
But can we
addressed.
agree that doing that is also beneficial to confuse the muscle systems? I mean, I that's not to take it off on a tangent direction, which is a whole nother conversation, right? But do you think that it, like, is that how you sold it to them essentially? Is that you've identified a weakness with them that you can't
I know how I
do...
sell it is, do you want to move or not?
Right. Okay. You're right. No. I got you.
No, because
That's
it's
reality.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. I'm over the whole muscle confusion thing and from my understanding, as time has gone on, the whole muscle confusion thing, it's just a marketing term. It's not nearly as valid of a thing. It's kind of like
Absolutely.
you were talking about earlier about lactic acid. And I was like, hold up a minute, dude. Like lactic acid is not a thing.
I
And
just use these
Andrew
words,
can
Andrew.
attest to that.
I just
Because
use these words.
That is my favorite thing. Whenever somebody comes in, they say, "Oh man, I got some lactic acid buildup in my triceps," and I'm like, "Whoa!" So
it's not.
I'm going to educate you a little bit about what's actually going on. And tell you. And what makes me laugh is when it's actually a doctor or it's a physical therapist who come forward and they present that information, and I just kind of sit there and I smile because I'm like, yeah, we're gonna have some work.
Yeah, and we've learned, Andrew and I have learned that shift in the exercise physiology world. We learned that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, we were like 19. It was more than 10 years ago. It was like 12 years ago. And still that misinformation still exists. So
I believe it. I mean, I didn't know what it was when I'm, if I'm running, if I'm doing a speed workout and my legs start to just, burn like a motherfucker, I always thought that was just lactic acid. That's what I was always told. But, he was like, pump the brakes. But and in the same breath, I never thought that any of the stuff that also went with those old wives' tales, if you will, ever the remediation techniques, it's like holding your breath to get rid of hiccups. There's just none of that shit worked. And it's because there was never an understanding, you know what I mean? And even when it came to foam rolling, I had a chiropractor that sold me on foam rolling to get out of my IT band issues. And he didn't really know how to explain it to me, but he showed me a couple stretches I could do on my bed. Which I was like, cool. But then when I started to foam roll, it hurt so bad. I would just sit there and shake. I mean, I would shake and it was just so painful. And I was like, well, hopefully it eventually does something, but if he would have maybe explained what he was doing or maybe had something to cite it, like, hey, read this article. This is kind of what's happening when you're foam rolling, and that's what I was thinking, because Pat can explain that to somebody like, hey, if you want to be able to move, you need to fucking roll. You need to do these.
And especially with men in general, like I'm not going to hold back anymore as far as trying to frame this as like, oh, this is muscle confusion. It's like, no, you want to have a family one day. You want to have kids, or you have kids and you can't keep up with them. You're in pain when you go to bed. You're in pain when you wake up. I'm done sugarcoating it. Do you want to live a pain-free and exuberant and vibrant life?
Right.
Okay. Do your lunges.
Well,
do your foam rolling, because it's about changing that mental framework of getting older, as well as being a guy in this particular case, and getting older being synonymous with being in pain.
Right.
And you have so many people that buy into that because they don't know any better.
They think that, you won't know until you get to be my age. But like Pat's going to be that fucking uncle that's like 45 or something. And he's literally out sprinting the kids and picking one up on his back and got the other one on the arm. And they're all going to be like, you won't be able to do that again in 10 years. 10 years later, there's Pat still fucking doing
it. Yeah, absolutely.
So go ahead.
I mean, honestly, Pat's right. Like, I think one of my things as a massage therapist is you can't sugarcoat it anymore with people. You have to be honest and you have to just tell them.
Well, tie it to their own life experiences. Like, they're going through this and it's like, do you want this to get better or not?
Right.
Yeah. And I really try to hit that home with a lot of people. And I encourage a lot of my therapists when I had them to say, like, you're going to get a lot of pushback from clients because they think they know better. They think they know their body better than you do. But the reality of it is
they don't.
They really do not. And it's my job to know your body more than you do. And I could sit there and I don't even have to be in the room to automatically know, like, this is what's going on here. And I can just see it because that's just what I've been trained to do. But yeah, to sit there and have that pushback from people to say, like, well, I'm 60 years old. I can't go up the stairs anymore. And it's like, If you only knew the things you're capable of doing, you wouldn't say the things you're doing.
Yeah.
And I guess it's my job to educate you, teach you, and help you through that process, because I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you every day to do just the one thing that makes you uncomfortable. So like one of my longest standing clients, even just as long as I've been working with Pat, he has been with me for almost close to 10 years now. And I, for the first time, got him to start stretching. I mean,
Really?
This is 10 years worth of work. This is a guy who has just been adamant of, you fix it. I come to you with the problems.
Andrew, can I be honest with you, bro? I don't want to interrupt you 100%, but I just want you to understand, it took a David Goggins book for me to actually start stretching. Like in the last 3 or 4 years, it honestly took like a stupid thing like that, where, like you said, that's the best advice.
But that's experience is the best teacher. And a lot of it has to do with I've dealt with similar stuff. I will have clients. Again, I'm just gonna come at you dudes, mainly men, that I will recommend. Hey, we need to stretch. We need to foam roll. Let's start doing the beginning our sessions with that, et cetera, et cetera. And they're always, no, I'm not going to do that. And I really feel like, I don't want to go too far down on a tangent, but men are afraid of feelings. Men are afraid of anything that has any stock in femininity, because women stretch and women do yoga, but hey, they're not in as much pain. So you're like, gee whiz.
It's always kind of funny when your wife can outrun you
or
do those things that you like, which requires some flexibility.
Right. So they would refuse it for so long, and then they would get hurt.
Right.
Yep.
What do you think they were asking me? Pat, what's the number for your massage therapist? That's the first thing they ask. And it's always a matter of, I'm willing to help you. I'm willing to refer you. But this could have been prevented.
Right.
The amount of pain and discomfort that you're in could have been prevented if you had added this extra dimension into your tool chest, your medicine cabinet, by working with Andrew or somebody like Andrew for the past 6 months when I had recommended it, or last year, or the 2 years ago that I recommended it. So it doesn't come as a surprise that Andrew's worked with somebody that intimately on the table, and 10 years has gone by and they have refused to stretch. But pain is going to be the biggest teacher for a lot of people.
And I want to ask both you guys this: how often do you see people that, let's say again, the stereotypical person? I just feel like we're just picking on dudes, but here it is. I'm the dude picking on the dude also.
Well, you can throw it on me, because that's my niche. My niche is primarily working with dads, because at some point in time, I am going to become a dad, and I don't like the way that most dads take care of their health.
Right.
And I'm going to do something different. So you can throw that on me. Any of the guy stuff, dudes, come at me. Let's have a conversation. We'll figure this out.
Well, this one's kind of serious. So this might be one that you guys could both answer. How often do you guys see that these guys are either looking at drugs or surgery as the only other option, or have tried those options and then are now turning to you guys? What do you see more of? Do you see that they're, before they go to the doctor? Because a lot of guys I know, let's just say conservative types, a lot of them that are not into athleticism and stuff like that, they're very much tuned into their doctor, right? In terms of the things they kind of want to take from it, because of course they probably aren't listening to all the things which may have led them to this place. But let's say they get hurt and they're taking pills for it, rather than doing the PT and doing the massage that goes with it, and then ultimately trying to work to get back and be active with a guy like Pat. I mean, do you see that you guys that they've tried it and they're at a loss, or are they looking at you guys as an option first, do you think? What do you see?
I'm going to piggyback off of Pat here for a second. So one of the things about massage therapy is we are a preventative tool. That is the biggest thing that we are here to do. We are here to prevent any injuries for the future. We are here to prevent as much really just damage as we can reduce as possible. And so part of my job is to educate you, but also to really try to relax the tissue, whatever it be, to get it to a point where injury is going to be reduced. I can't tell you how many times I have gone through a situation where people were like, oh, I had a shoulder injury and I decided to pick up CrossFit one day, and I forgot, that one might be a little special workout that has a lot of repetition inside of it.
CrossFit-ish.
Yeah.
Just
so it's one of those things where as a therapist, I can't tell you how many times people come to me and they're like, oh, I did 100 of these because that was the workout. And it's like, well, did you really take a look at what you were doing? Like, let's take a step back, look at what you were doing, and you're shocked that your lower back hurts, you threw your shoulders out, you're no longer capable of running because your knees are trashed. So let's reduce some of these things and let's kind of work on those, get those back to a normal place. But I'm also going to educate you at the end of the session on things you should be aware of. Let's try to avoid doing 100 of these things at a high rep, because that's just ridiculous for anybody. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like Pat said, you want to be 60 years old and still moving, then cut it out. Stop doing it. It's not worth losing. It's not worth gaining what you think you're gaining. You're not gaining anything other than a big medical bill that's going to be hitting you down the road.
Well, and I feel like a lot of that ties into ego. Like you got to let go of the ego. You got to be willing to live within the discomfort that comes from moderate to lower intensity workouts, and doing that over a long period of time. Like those workouts that you have where it's, oh, I can only get 15 minutes or 20 minutes of a workout in. Well, just do a nice, easy, normal workout. Don't push yourself to the nth degree during that time. So I feel like a lot of it has to do with ego. You got to let that go, and you've got to be willing to submit and open yourself up to a different way of doing things. Because I see it all the time with a lot of the guys I work with. They're always coming back to the only thing that they know, and the only thing that they know is pushing hard in the gym.
Redlining.
Pull, yeah. Yeah. And then I would say one of my bigger concerns as a therapist is always so there is a whole holistic side to massage therapy. Of course, there has to be, because you got to be open to those things. Like with Pat, I grew up on science, okay? I was
Bill Nye the science guy. Bill,
exactly. I was very science oriented. I put no stock into religion. I put no stock into what people call the hippy dippy part of life.
Don't have any crystals under your pillow, bro? I don't know.
Oh God, no. Well, hold on.
My bad.
So
I might have stepped in it.
When I started massage therapy, I was, again, going in with this very black and white view of life. It was very, this is how it is, and this is how it's going to be. If I work on somebody, they're going to get better. And then I was approaching that with my technique for the very beginning. And it was like, okay, I'm going to work on you and you should feel better, right? No, rarely would that ever be the case, because there was something deeper underneath it. And it was when I started expanding further in my education and really opened my eyes up to Eastern, what would they call it? Holistic medication, I guess is the best way to put it. So thinking of things like meditation, energy work, things of that nature, that really helped me approach clients from a totally different perspective. And there was a huge turnaround shift of seeing results, because then it wasn't so much that I'm working on you, you should feel better. It was now I'm working on you, but I'm noticing that you're starting to tear up a little bit. Like, what's going on? What's going on with that situation? Can you tell me what's happening while I'm working on this foot?
Yeah.
So you totally have a moment on the table where they're like, I was dealing with being 20 years old, and I was broke, I was poor, I was this, and the memories just start flooding out, and it's like, whoa, okay, you're having a moment right now. So then we would finish the session and then take a look at some of those injuries and say, how do you feel now? How does that feel to you? And they're like, oh, I feel so much better.
Yeah. It's like, can we just pay attention to the words? Massage therapy. Therapy. And then with a personal trainer, personal trainer. It's like, it's so much more in depth than people want it to be, or that they think they want it to be.
But again, or it's sold to us, because as an outsider that hasn't looked at this as my career field, I'm looking at this as like, I mean, probably one of the only other personal training places that I would know if I wasn't seeking it out, or I knew that there was access to it, was at that that purple place where people pick things up and put them down.
Right.
And that's not the thing that we're talking about here, because they're not being a personal trainer. They're hooking you into the 30-minute time slot where a guy walks you to some machines, kind of catering to your ego. And then you're like, yeah, check some boxes off. And then you leave, because there's no follow-up. There's no personal connection. That personal trainer goes to the next 20 people. So, that's not that's what has been offered, I think, a lot of times. And it's until you see, or, I hate to say it, but you almost have to like get to that point where you're either injured or you start to care for one reason or another. And some people come to that journey through pain, or they come to that journey by seeing other people go through shit. You have like a family member die. That's when they start to run. That's when they start to lift, and it's like, man, I wish that there was another way for it to be sold, but I don't know where that conversation needs to begin.
Well, it's happening right now. So that's, you know what I mean? Like that's part, you know what I mean? It's like more people who know what they're doing, that are invested in the human element of this. And this is why I love Andrew to death. I consider him like, you know what I mean? You're my brother, dude. You represent a dimension of health that continues to be, that needs to be, it's imperative. It needs to be echoed. It needs to be talked about, and it's not being talked about enough. It's, with Andrew, with us talking to Christian, people that are in it to actually help people, right, and not just in it for the money, because there's so much more that comes from our work. I don't want to get too emotional, but like being able to actually see somebody not be in pain,
right,
and not buy into this thought process that life is inherently painful, therefore it becomes miserable because it hasn't been managed, and they haven't been led into or had their hand held into meeting individuals like Andrew,
right,
to where you can go in and work with them, and you can shed what's been going on and it be completely free of judgment. I've had those moments getting massages from Andrew where I lost my mind. Like I cried, but it was like I needed a release. And you just, when it comes to like the whole mental, psychological, metaphysical element of our lives, you can't avoid that. Your body holds on to it,
right?
And you can't just get it out of you by a hard exercise
or drinking it down or smoking
exactly.
it down.
So it's like
I've
had instances working with Andrew to where I told him I'm dealing with a pretty depressed state in my life right now, and he could feel that before I even told him. Mm-hmm. There's an exchange being there's an exchange taking place. And that's why it's so important to have somebody who's versed and prepared and knows how to manage that and navigate that with you.
Yeah.
And in a very judgment-free space where you can go there and you can be a meathead that's used to just like grunting right, things out all the time. And if you have one of those instances where you're vulnerable, you got stuff going on in your life, you can have someone that's like, hey, it's all good. This is just between you and me. Like there's no judgment. We're here to help in whatever way that we can.
Absolutely.
That's huge, Pat.
That was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do appreciate everything you said. One of the biggest things that I always find interesting is these people with a very, as you said, conservative type approach to how I should do my job. People come to me and say, "Oh, you're just the guy that works on my muscles and that's it." And it's like, if that's how you view it,
it's like your body is and that's it's like, wait, you keep saying your body's a temple, so then that's not the way to view it. It's so much more.
Do you feel like you break that stigma quite a bit, like when you have clients come in?
Absolutely. Pat and I have worked with some people who have very strong opinions about my line of work or a certain way of life. And when he brings them to me, my job really is just to kind of help open that venue a little bit, to kind of just tell people like, you're coming to me into my space, and you should know that coming to me in my space, you are safe. I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're religious. I don't care if you're transgender. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care about any of it. You're coming to me with a problem, and my job is to simply help you navigate through it in the best way that I know how. And then once that's done, it's my job to educate you on how do we keep going from this moment on. Because I'm glad, I don't care if you're 60 years old. I don't care if you're 10 years old. You're coming to me with an issue, and I want you to have this in your back pocket to always say, I'm having and I'm dealing with the issue or problem, whether it's physical, metaphysical, or if it's emotional.
Damn.
You should have that ability.
Deep on me, Andrew. I'm liking it.
Yeah, you just have that ability to pick up the phone, call one of us and say, hey, Aurora Sky, I'm having a really tough day. Is there anybody that's available? Can anybody take me in right now? Because I just need this. And it's like, yeah, no, we can totally make that work. And I would encourage that to find somebody who can help you with that situation. We're not scary people. We're probably one of the most open-minded people that you could possibly ever meet. I mean, I've met other massage therapists, and yes, there are those who go into the far deeper end of things where it's just like, oh, that's a little heavy. But then there's people like me who are somewhere in between. You want to find somebody who knows what they're doing, but they're also very educated on the other side of massage therapy, where it is very spiritual, it's very holistic, but takes it to a realm of that it is beneficial for you. There's always, as a therapist, you have to draw that line of saying like, okay, this person is probably not going to be very open to this at first. So I'm going to just work on them and get a warm up feeling of seeing how they feel. And then gradually I'll start talking about these little things and see how they feel about it. Do they feel scared, or are they immediately turned off and just like, I don't want to hear that shit. Don't talk about that kind of stuff around me. And it's like, okay, well, I know to keep that to myself, but for the future, I'm always
you're saying things like, do you delve into like family issues and things like that? Like trying to just ask if maybe you having a good day and shit like that. Do you get people that shut you down at that level?
Yeah. You could ask somebody like, how are you feeling today? And they're just like, I don't want to talk about it.
Right. I just want you to bang out these knots, boss. That's all I want you to do. You get that kind of conversation. Exactly. I got you. Okay.
But as a therapist, I am trained to do something even more, which is I am consciously thinking of, okay, what is this person going through right now that they are totally blocking me out? This person, I've worked with them for 10 years and they are blocking me every step of the way when it comes to working on them. And then as a therapist, you also get the right to just say when a session is just getting to be, no, we're done, because I'm trying to work on you and you are not letting me in on multiple different levels. By controlling the session, you are not allowing me to manipulate the limbs that I need to move. So really, I don't see any point in you wasting my time and me wasting your time.
And I think that ties into where I think people get very confused, as it's, and that's where I come from, where people confuse having a personal trainer and having a massage therapist as a luxury.
Right.
Because what Andrew's talking about, correct me if you feel differently, Andrew, but what that makes me think of, because I've experienced it, people feeling like, oh, this is the luxury business, so I can hire a massage therapist and I can hire a personal trainer and I can just tell them what I want.
Like a personal assistant kind of a thing.
Yes, 100%.
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
I've learned a lot in my almost decade working with clients in person. And I spent a lot of time letting clients boss me around. And that's not what this is about. And I think that's what Andrew's alluding to, as far as if you are really wanting to get the most benefit out of this, you've got to trust me.
Right.
But that'll manifest itself in numerous ways. You have a client that took 10 years that was willing to actually get down and help and start doing stretching. That's not the main objection. There's probably stuff deeper than that as to why they're not willing to take input when it comes to making adjustments to their health. It's not just the stretching piece. It's likely a little bit more than that.
But in the same breath, do you feel like, I don't consider myself to be a professional at all, but like my background is basically in running. That's like completely, and that's the only world I know. And I've done enough fucking up. Again, part 2 of Morgan's stories of fucking up. I've done enough fucking up to where I know, when I come into, like this physical therapist that I'm seeing, I'm coming in and I'm trying to talk to him and I'm like, and I heard that this is what I should be doing. And this is what and I felt like after a while, I'm just kind of peppering him with shit. Like, my Google searches must be, like, am I going to get you to bite something? That's what I felt like. Like I was just kind of like, with it. We're going to say
I have a perfect analogy of that.
Okay.
So you come to me as a client, right?
Okay.
Let's take this cup.
Okay.
You as a client have filled this cup all the way to the very tippy top with all your information, all of your Google searches, everything. You know everything about this. You know what I'm going to do?
Pour that shit out.
I'm going to pour it out and I'm going to sit there and say, okay, that's nice that you researched all that. That's really good information, but That's not what's happening here. And
that's amazing.
Actually,
well, see, this is,
but yeah, like
I laugh because this is where Andrew showing his personality, which he's very much, and there's nothing wrong with it, because I get where you're coming from, Andrew, but I've obviously got a different way of doing that.
Right?
Like, I get where he's coming from,
out.
but
pour it the fuck out.
He can very much, Andrew very, very much can get like, nope, I'm not putting up with this. I'm going to give you some sass. And like, that's it. But I think he and I come from a similar place, although his analogy is different than what I would use. But a lot of it's, Andrew, correct me if I'm off here, if you feel differently. Every professional is going to have their own way of filtering information for their clients. And I think that's what Andrew's really getting at, is like, yeah, he's going to dump it out, but he's going to sort through that through communicating with you around, okay, so you read this thing on the internet. We're going to navigate that as it applies to your situation, or actually identify that it doesn't even apply to your situation. Sure. So I view it as, and I think Andrew's analogy is similar in that it's just, we are professional filters for our clients. They come with that cup and we dump it out and kind of sort through the remnants.
Well, and that's what I was asking, because I try to keep I try to consider myself to be, I don't have a personal trainer that I go with, because it just honestly, like, I'm a runner and I don't honestly have like issues when it comes to weight and things like that. Like, I pursue it as a hobby. In the same breath, I find my friendship with Pat to be invaluable, because he teaches me about the holistic approach, which includes all the health stuff. And then of course
you're lucky, dude.
Sorry. I know,
because it's fun. Like, actually being with somebody that has a genuine curiosity, like you're going down the rabbit hole.
Oh,
man.
I fucking love it. Yeah,
it's you know what I mean.
Yeah. This conversation could go for hours.
And not just with you and I, Andrew, but like Morgan has had the chance to talk to some other people, and we're going to continue to dive down that rabbit hole. And it's so fun to see these. I can always see these light bulb like aha moments happening with Morgan. He's just like, oh my god,
bro! I've got like
I never thought of it.
I've got 4 of them. I'm holding on my brain keep note right here. Right. It's waiting.
No, and it's fun, like letting that's what because I love it so much, because I see a lot of that in me as well. Like I'm always, don't stop being curious about your health. Don't stop being curious about learning about different means of helping taking care of yourself. Sure. And that's why I always go back to that medicine cabinet piece. Diversify the hell out of it. Learn how you can get help with massage therapy. Learn how you can get help with a personal trainer, yoga, chiropractic, actual counseling, with a psychologist, all that kind of stuff. It's let curiosity drive you and drive that journey. And anybody who knocks it, they ain't your people.
Right.
Like go find people who
build you up,
who are secure enough in themselves to be like, hey, I've never, and I'm speaking from experience, you're a living example.
Yeah.
We're talking about areas of one's health that aren't talked about enough, around getting massages and the more restorative self-care pieces of one's health.
Well, and anybody that comes to you, like you said, with some of that cup full, which is what I try to attribute myself to kind of being, is that kind of guy. Cause I will go into a doctor's appointment for a fucking ear infection. And I'm just like, I remember having a long conversation with the doctor. My wife is like, when the fuck?
Wait, you actually had a long conversation with the doctor?
I caught him off guard.
How did that happen?
Because you make a valid point. Cause usually they're in and out, right?
For sure. It's like, okay, ear infection. Here's a prescription. Bye.
And that was where he was going. And then I was like, well, let me ask you a question about energy drinks. And then he's like, oh, and then I kind of piqued his like actual interest. He was like, okay. And then from there, it got into talking about foot maintenance when it comes to runners and like my toenails falling off. And it's interesting to just catch somebody off guard, because sometimes it's just like, I don't know, maybe this is a bad example, but like a military guy going back to his training. Sometimes if you catch a doctor off guard, the fuckers will just spit with some definition type shit, and you'll learn stuff. And granted, that may not seem like it's beneficial, but in the long run, I saved that trip that I would have had to made later, had to have made. I can speak. Hooked on phonics worked for me, because I was able to like get this conversation had right there. But like you said, this is just like the insurance with the shoulder problem, right? Like the doctor maybe having me come in there for an ear infection, but maybe he didn't know I ran in the rain for 2 hours, like, a couple days ago, and that's what ended up ultimately causing the ear infection, and I don't know. I guess my point is that I think that it's weird that the system that we're all hooked into legally to get care for doesn't care for people the way that like you guys do.
Well,
You know what I mean?
it's just not viewed as a synergistic. It's not viewed through a synergistic model.
Sure.
The model that is in place, everything's just fragmented, and it puts a lot of work, for better or for worse, I don't know, but it puts a lot of work on the individual to go on
And
that
seek
search
that shit out. Yeah.
and go on that expedition themselves.
That's why I got water in my cup, Andrew.
That can be that. Yeah, exactly. And that can be why people feel paralyzed.
Yeah.
It's so you go to a doctor and they're not referring out and helping create this path and this trail for you to move on to go meet somebody with like Andrew, and then Andrew creating a path to maybe somebody like me or somebody different. I want to be able to, this is an extension of the bridges I want to build with other professionals to refer out. I want to build a bridge with more of like the psychology or psychological counseling element, therapeutic element of things, because you cannot focus. I don't necessarily buy it, or at least it just doesn't work for me. I can't focus on just lifting weights all the time in order for it to solve my life's problems. It took care of some stuff for me in my early 20s when I was a very angry guy. I was dealing with life traumas. But at some point in time, it gets boring, and I'm not angry anymore.
Well, I've
got to find other means of therapy and exercise and self-care and help that are going to continue to help me on my path of evolution. And I think that shouldn't be any different for anybody.
Yeah, I let a lot of my anger out through running, and eventually I got to the point where I'm able to run marathons, and it's like, how destructive can you be to yourself before eventually, you know what I mean? Like, because you can't get that anger out anymore. Now it's like, you need to be smart about what you're doing. It's not like I can go out there and, just start tearing apart, super fast times, redlining my heart every day, all the time. You can't do it, so eventually I think that ends up going to another place. You let that stress or that anger out in a different way. Maybe you're more healthy, and I think that can be what you're alluding to, is that maybe you're more healthy in terms of your physical appearance, but maybe your mind and your spirit didn't quite get there. And then it gets let out, like on Andrew's massage table or in a gnarly workout that Pat put somebody through, and it finally just clicked that switch, where, they needed to have that therapy aspect to go with their medicine cabinet and their holisticness. I'm making up words again, Pat.
That's a word. The holistic nature.
We'll make it a word. As a group, we should make that a word. Yeah.
Holisticness.
Right. But it really makes me think a lot, and it's just following a few of my favorite artists, musical artists, and them.
Oh, we turn to music.
There's some parallels that I see here, because I'll have, obviously, like, and I think a lot of people will relate to this, and many artists are probably this way, where say they've got their big hit, and it primarily being like a rock and metal fan in my youth. So I'll just use an example like Tool, for instance. A lot of their stuff was very aggressive and could be viewed as very angry. Yeah. That's a representation of that artist's life at that point in time.
He blew his knee apart from hitting his knee his foot on the ground on the stage all those years, from his Maynard.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He had to have his whole knee rebuilt because just slamming his knee from the music, like that's how aggressively he embodied it on
repetition,
stage.
Right?
Yeah.
And people, fans would be, I think there was something he was saying something to the tune of, there's certain songs that he just won't really play anymore because he's not angry.
Yeah.
He's not in that space anymore. So, but fans would continually ask for certain songs
from this album era.
Yeah. Like I need this. Well,
Korn's the same way, right?
But it ties into people evolve. So when it comes to exercise, if a certain form of exercise isn't serving you in the way that it used to anymore, I can't go into that. I don't know that I'll be able to go back into the gym again and be as angry and have as much adrenaline and get out as much trauma and angst as I did in my 20s. But guys try to recreate that as they get older. And you got to find way, if you're getting that feedback to where you're not as angry as you were before, or you've gotten through one of the main things you've gotten through, it doesn't mean you have to keep beating a dead horse. There are other avenues of exercise that are just as valid, that have just as many health benefits, that you'll be fine just giving a shot.
Right.
And I always thought of the artist piece, because you're trying to recreate something that may not need to be recreated.
I say that, yeah, that's an excellent example, like especially with metal bands, because like in their early days, I mean, they're eating like,
they're
bologna,
they've got little to no money. They're not nourishing themselves. They're abusing massive amounts of drugs. Every piece on the checklist as far as not taking care of oneself seems to be checked. It's no knock on them, but that gives you a sense of what kind of state of mind that they were in and how that influenced experiences that they were having. Yeah. That speaks a lot to art in and of itself. And I don't want to go too big picture, but that speaks to life in a nutshell. Some beautiful things can come as a result of going through tremendous amounts of pain and tremendous amounts of trauma.
That was beautiful.
But you do not have to recreate that all the time, because that's all you know. You know what I mean? You don't have to always go back to that. So that's how I look at things through.
Pat, are you saying it's okay for me to cry even though I have a penis?
Yes.
Okay. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. It is.
You cried as a little one. You cried when you came out of the womb.
That's a valid point, brother.
You went through a myriad of emotions as you were growing up. It's a human experience. Let's not segment this by gender anymore.
I wish I could just play like every day, like at every construction site before like all the, the guys like break out to go do their like construction guy work. You know what? I want them all
to watch. Construction guy work.
I want them all to watch those, like, when the army vets and the military vets come home after like years and their kids just lose their fucking minds. Every time I'm like, oh, like you cannot watch that shit and tell me, I don't care if you're the toughest man in the world. You watch that shit and they just do like those compilations and you're just like getting emotion fucked. You're just like, it's too much.
Well, yeah.
It's too much.
But it's called mirrored neurons. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't. Speak to me.
Well, I don't want to speak too out of line, but long story short, I don't Google it first and foremost, but mirrored neurons, what it ends up coming down to is you see mirrored experiences within other people that you've experienced yourself. So it's going to elicit a response. If someone is in pain, yeah, you've ever heard of sympathy pains?
Oh yeah.
All that kind of, like, we're all interconnected. So it's not a male female thing. It's a human thing. No, and the sooner we get over that and open ourselves up to just getting whatever help it might be, whether it's personal trainer, massage therapy, or whatever, the sooner you're going to be in a better state of life, and the sooner life can be more fun and more vibrant, as I like to look at it.
And kind of tying into what you're talking about, Pat, in the massage world, we call that being an empath. This is what makes me truly, like me, myself, Andrew, is truly unique from any other massage therapist out there. Is because
have you heard that before?
Unique ability.
I have. Okay.
I have.
Yeah. I have a unique ability to be able to look at somebody and feel what they are feeling and put that and project it into my own body. And that is why I'm very good at my job. It's because I can put myself into that person's body and be able to say, oh, Jesus Christ, like, you've got some stuff going on and we're going to focus on these things.
Do you feel that same way with your hands too? Like when you put your hands on somebody, can you tell the stress from the way that their tension in their body is and how they hold themselves?
I tell people, I said, if I was to one day be in a radioactive accident and I lost my vision, my hands would be the only thing I need, because reading a body is like reading Braille. You can feel just everything inside of the tissue, and it's telling you a story. Really, it's kind of interesting. When you put your hands on somebody's body, you can feel the story of this person. You can tell, oh, damn, they've been through some trauma. They've been through like car accidents or
where they hold their stress,
relationships or financial issues. You name it. You can feel it inside of your hands, and it's really interesting to be able to sit back and manifest like that third sense of saying like, oh, wow, are you thinking about like financial troubles? And it's kind of an open-ended question. And so they're kind of like, well, yeah, I'm dealing with X, Y, Z. And it's like, okay, well, how can I help you in that situation? And then you start realizing the tissues start loosening up and they start getting softer.
That's some heavy shit, bro. I like that.
Yeah, like, come on, talk to me more. Tell me more about what this is doing to you. Because the more you're opening up, I am secretly in the back of my head going, wow, this is getting a lot softer. This is moving and this is gone now. This person has talked themselves through what their problem is. they recognized it first and foremost is recognizing that it is a problem. They're talking about it. And then inside of their head, they're talking about resolutions. They're going through it. Either they're telling me or they're telling themselves.
Or you're just allowing them to kind of like have a neutral party to bounce shit off of. Right?
Absolutely.
And what's so cool about that is learning that that's all going to come in various dimensions and forms. Like it's a really unique experience to be, and everybody's going to be on a continuum. Like Andrew's talking about, he'll have people that he's probably worked with for 3 years that haven't opened up yet, but they keep showing up to the session. I have had clients where didn't really make any substantial progress until like the 3rd or 4th year of working with them, because they were actually willing to talk to me about what was going on in their life. And what, the stuff that they felt like they had to hide from me, for any particular reason. And it's a very fascinating experience to be working with somebody like Andrew and talking to him just about how he and I are very open. I don't really have much of a problem telling him what's going on in my life, good, bad, or indifferent. It's a much different, I feel like it's a much softer, it's a much more beautiful experience, having literal tension in your muscles being relieved while you're relieving tension going on mentally at the same time. It's you're killing multiple birds with one stone. You could be getting a little bit of your own. And to be clear, Andrew or myself are not counselors or anything like that. That's not what we do. We don't go in that.
No, but it enhances what you do.
I want to clarify, but I'm talking about just the sake of talking and having communication. Everything's going to be rooted in communication. And being able just to chat about how your day is going. And like Andrew was saying, talking themselves, or in this particular case, maybe myself, just him being a soundboard and me being able just to ramble on about from A to Z, what's going through my head. And then by the end of it, it's like, I've been able to sort it out. Sure. Much like when people would, do a workout or anything like that, they put their headphones on, they kind of stay in their head and they're talking through it while they're exerting themselves physically. It's just acknowledging there's so many different forms and places to kind of pull from, to play with that, to diversify how you go about managing the million different things going on in your head.
That's heavy, dude. I like that. I would have never thought of that perspective before.
Yeah.
I guess then I have a layman's question for you then. Sure. What consists of, or what is the tangible part of the muscle that is a knot? If I have a knot, what is that?
So you have, that's a loaded question, but I'm going to try to simplify.
Could it be? Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have tendons.
Okay.
We have muscles.
Okay.
And we have something called fascia. So tendons are what connects the muscle to the bone. So that's what allows me to do this motion. Okay.
Okay.
But muscles get confused as to having.
He's doing like a bicep motion, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah.
For you guys that are just like a curl.
People
Sorry.
get confused that muscles have this innate ability to have other flexibilities. Like, no, your muscles are designed with 2 movement patterns. They go back and forth, or they can slightly turn, and that's about it. But beyond that, that's all they got. And then there's fascia. So fascia is this super intricate web that covers the entire body. And so if you've ever, this is going to sound so gross, but this is the analogy I always use, is if you've ever taken chicken, okay, and peel off the skin, and you see those little tiny things that are like coating the top of the chicken, and they're like really hard to pull off, and they kind of make that gross snapping sound.
Sure.
That's fascia. It's in everything that involves musculature, involving meat, has it. And that is the web that lines your whole entire body. And so what I tell people is it's like a spider's web. Yep. Just because you tap on one edge of the spider or the spider web, that alerts the spider on the whole other end that there's something inside of its web.
It's a ripple effect.
The spider comes over and looks at it and says, that's where that is. So the body's the same way. Just because I can touch my foot in one particular area, it has to go somewhere. So my brain is registering it.
Sure.
And so what knots tend to do is the muscles have this thing of where they contract back and forth like this. Okay. So the fingers interlock and they spread apart. And what tends to happen is, let's say a heavy workout with Pat, right? and then people overdo it or something happens, those muscles will get tighter and tighter and tighter.
Interesting.
And then they contract. So this is a state of contraction. Now, this is a knot. They don't pull apart. I'm pulling with as much force as I can, and they're not going anywhere because these are locking it in place.
And is this just from fatigue, or is this just like, and I apologize, like, I'm just curious what makes it not in the first place, just overuse?
I think just about anything.
Okay.
Anything really.
Sitting all day, like keeping them, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, like it could be through just a multitude of just repetition over and over and over again, as well as sitting and being in a particular, your muscles being in a particular position over and over and over again. Because as we're sitting, there aren't muscles that are just hanging out. The muscles like of our hips are in a contracted state for an extended period of time. So it's not always exercise exclusive. It's life exclusive.
Right. Like truck drivers would have issues from sitting all the time.
Am I right, Andrew?
Yeah. So kind of tying into that is because there is a state of contraction that does happen, whether you're sitting or my favorite one to always tell people is your brain is muscle in itself. And it also creates a contraction too. So your brain is connected to that muscle. And that's why we get biofeedback, which is where somebody registers pain as a knot, where they're like, oh man, there's that spot in my shoulder that just never goes away. No matter what I do, I try to stretch it.
Right.
Do that. It just doesn't go away. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I talk to people and they say, like, I use the massage gun, I've used a massage ball, I've tried stretching, I've tried yoga to get this to go away, and it just doesn't. And then that's where, okay, you've tried every avenue of trying to get this out. That tells me there's something deeper going on. There's something way, way, way deeper attached to that particular problem.
That's creating the knot in particular, right? Like the tangible thing from my perspective would be, so you're saying that my shoulder's hurting because of something else besides my shoulder hurting is essentially what you're saying. Okay, cool. And that's not obvious to a guy like me. You know what I mean? Not at the outset.
And again, like the analogy I always tell people is with the same spider web. Let's say I was to put my finger in that spider web and I just slightly twisted it. That affects the entire structure. The entire web is pulling into that one particular location.
Sure.
But just because I'm pulling it here doesn't mean it's not affecting other things that are going over there. Other parts are going to feel super stretched. Other parts are going to feel contracted. Other parts are going to feel like they're breaking loose. It's going to be all over the place. So it's just really kind of taking a step back to say, like, how do I unwind that to let this tissue stretch back out?
Yeah.
And for the use case, you would say, like, this guy with the shoulder issue, then he would go in complaining about this and you would work on that for, say, 60 minutes and additionally have this holistic piece. Not saying that every time it's like, Barbara Walters and everybody's crying, right? We know that that's not going to be the case. No. But like, let's just say I go in, my shoulder hurts, bro. You got me for 60 minutes and you're banging on it. We might come to some conclusions by talking to me, essentially, that you're finding out that maybe I'm throwing the bench up wrong, again, using an example. And then you can start to talk to me about something that I may not be like I'm just thinking maybe age, right? Or maybe I'm just fucking whatever. I don't know, the way I sit at work, but really it's like that gym session I might be doing. I'm just winging it from the way that I've always done it when I was in high school, and it's starting to catch up to me maybe. So that's what you're saying. Essentially, you would be able to come around. Cause I mean, I guess I always thought it was just like, I've gone to the gym plenty of times. So like if I beat the shit out of my back on a back day, I can start to feel this tension coming up the right side of my back. And, I stopped using a bar when I would do a preacher curl. I started using free weights on each hand. And it was so that I could kind of give myself a little bit more work on form and things of that nature. Just that little tiny thing, it started to loosen up a little bit when I was done doing particular workouts. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like I could do biceps today, I'd take a break one day, come back and do a back day, and I wouldn't start to feel that knot building up. And it was almost like I started to realize that there was a connection between, the different exercises I was doing. And now I'm starting to see from what you're saying that there's more of a connection, and like I could have something going on with my left shoulder and that could ultimately start to affect my hip or my back, right? Is that kind of what you're alluding to with the fascia?
I'll provide an example. When I was slowly but surely trying to get educated, it was before I finished school, all that kind of stuff. And I remember hearing about, and even in the beginning stages of working with Andrew, because it was the infant stages of my career in the industry, you hear about working with a massage therapist and all that kind of stuff, and them talking about, like, and Andrew will assess this a lot of the times, you've got something going on, you've got pain in a particular area of your body, and you think, oh, just work on that area. And he'll work on a completely different, opposite side of your body that it actually might be coming from. And I remember back in the day wondering how valid that was.
That's
you're
interesting.
skeptical of, oh no, it's I have pain right in this spot, just work on that. But it just continues to tie deeper and deeper into this universal theme of life and in the world, that everything is interconnected. Your body is a direct representation of that. Like, it's not always localized. And Andrew making the mention of that, using that spider analogy, is amazing. I've never heard it so eloquently put. If you twist one part of, even if you tap that spider web, it's felt everywhere. There's a ripple effect. And the same thing is going on with your body, your actions, how you treat other people. It just goes bigger and bigger and bigger. So it blows my mind that people continue to just negate this kind of stuff, these universal truths, and saying, Andrew, just work on one part of my body. That's where it's hurt, when it's a matter of, no, your body, your everything, the leg bone's connected to the knee bone. Like, you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. Everything's connected. It needs to be viewed that way.
Well, so are you having any issues? And I want to lead this into kind of talking about like how somebody could possibly come see you, because I'm sure that people that are listening, that may have not ever have heard of you before. And I apologize, I hadn't either, just purely because, like, there's a massage parlor down the street from my house in Los Lunas, bro. But to me, I don't know which one is trying to give me the happy ending.
Well, this was a question that I was going to ask Andrew to help provide some greater clarification. So, Andrew, for those that, for Morgan and those that don't know and those that are listening, can you help provide a continuum? Because this is it's no different than with personal training, and even being in the online trainer industry. There's your just generic Instagram trainer that is going to take $150 of your money, give you a boilerplate program, and say, see you later, and not actually give you the service that you deserve and need. And then there's people who are specialists, like myself and my colleagues. So same thing for massage. Like, there's a lot of ridiculous stuff with happy ending, massage parlors and all that ridiculous.
I had to bring it up, bro. I'm
no,
sorry.
I think it's very valuable, because there's no way on God's green earth that Andrew is getting lumped into that category.
Well,
so I would love for you to help provide some feedback around that and provide some context for people.
Yeah, of course. So just real quick, on time's sake, I got like maybe a couple more minutes, but
all good, brother.
I want to answer it with this: is when you are seeking out a massage therapist, you want to look for, I tell people my red flags are usually the indicators of if it's produced in a way that is oriental, and it's a stereotype, but there's a reason those things exist.
I got you.
If there's Christmas lights, or if there's the big neon sign on it.
No shit, bro.
Those are the places you want to avoid.
I'm taking notes now.
Places that are legitimate, and people that are legitimate themselves are going to be things that are, first of all, have a website, a website that's reputable, and then having some sort of attached number to that. So my license number is 7895. But if somebody just says LMT, CNMMT, blah, 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 probably not a real massage therapist. And so it's best to just kind of do your research on your therapist. You can look up anybody's license on the New Mexico website. So if people wanted to search me, they would just type my name in, and they would see that I have an active license and that I am practicing in massage therapy.
That is huge, bro. I did not know any of that. Yep. And I'm glad that you just informed a lot of people. Beyond that, how would they be able to get a hold of you, and how can we follow you, man? Like, you guys are open during the pandemic, right? Like 100% now?
So kinda. I'm doing half work right now, and it's just for my own sanity and my own sake of making sure I'm keeping safe on my end. So I've reduced my workload pretty significantly, but I still have one other therapist that works with me, and she's really awesome. But if people want to come see us, it's www.auroraskymassage.com, and our phone number is 505-355-8907.
Perfect. And then you guys are open for business as of now, like appointment only, but sweet. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Okay.
Yeah, I got an appointment with my boy on the 22nd.
And
yes, sir.
I need to make one as well. Do you guys take United Health? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I wish we could take insurance.
I'm talking shit. No, I need to just straight make an appointment with you, bro. I was totally
but
good.
I had no idea it was that much of a mess. It almost incentivizes not even messing around with trying to accept insurance.
Well, I had a boss that we had a special insurance at another job that would do acupuncture and massage, but it was like very small amount that you could do. Like you'd get like once 6 months or something. So it was really stupid, but no, I'm going to come straight up. I needed to find somebody that again is, we'll keep all the stereotypes out of it, and is all good. Right. So this was amazing, bro. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and like, enlightening my listeners, Pat's listeners and his customers as well, because, this is content that we're hoping that actually inspires people to, maybe go against some of these, I don't know if the word would be again, stereotypes or taboos or just these cultural norms that they've been up against where maybe they weren't comfortable going to a massage therapist. They didn't understand what the context was behind that, and then beyond that, how that can be intertwined with maybe a personal training regimen that they're already on, with somebody like Pat, or maybe they just need to go in there and try to see what it's all about. I mean, I've never been to an actual massage. I got massaged after a marathon one time for like 20 minutes. And I was in the throes of death because I hated everything. So it was no benefit really. I mean, maybe if anything, I recovered faster, but it didn't feel good. I wasn't happy. So I want to go and actually do it. I'm starting a 100-mile race training coming up in March. So I'm going to be packing on miles, and I need to be nice and soft. And
you need to be proactive with your training. And that's the thing. Massage therapy is a part of your training. It's not separate.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Well, Pat, where can we find you again? I always like to give you the opportunity to reiterate.
www.aware.training, and then on Instagram at aware_life_ABQ.
Do you have any social media, Andrew, that you use for Aurora?
Yeah. So we use Instagram. We also have Facebook. And again, it's just Aurora, AURORA, Sky, SKY massage.
Sweet. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Andrew. I know that time is tight, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to come and visit with us, man.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. You guys have a blessed day. Thank you.
You too. Dude. Okay. Later, man.